So Airbnb just announced a major change on how their service fees work. And hosts are absolutely freaking out about this.
The hosting community is in free fall over this, but the truth is, in our view, this change really isn't that big of a deal as long as you know how to adjust for it properly. Now, in this video, we're going to break down exactly what's changing, why it's happening, and most importantly, what you can do about it to protect your profits. All right, let's go.
Okay, so what is actually changing with this fee structure? What is going on? Everyone's freaking out about these additional fees with Airbnb. What's happening? Let's go into it. So we've been hosting with STR Wealth Academy since 2018. So it's been about 7 years, and this is probably a major change for most hosts, but this is the biggest fee one we've seen in the meantime. But they've been playing around with fees and how they want to advertise it for a while. But here's the actual shift and change that they are now concrete moving forward with.
So previously how this worked with service fees, and just to back it up a little bit even more, what service fees are, this is basically how Airbnb makes money, okay? So they're connecting a guest with a property that is hosted by a host, and they're essentially the broker that stands in the middle and collects a fee to set that up. So service fees basically just go towards paying for them to operate their operations, for marketing, and to essentially generate revenue for the business. Now, previously how this worked was they had what was called a split fee model. So in most cases, hosts were paying a 3% service fee, which more or less just essentially paid for the credit card processing fees, probably plus a little extra. And the guest was paying anywhere from roughly 12 to up to 14%, depending on, again, circumstances. Now, what's changing is that they are moving all of the service fees to what they're calling a host-only service fee. So basically, the hosts are going to be paying the brunt of the fees, and it's going to be going from 3% all the way up to 15.5% taken out of your payouts.
So guys, this announcement and this change is happening October 27th, 2025 for people that use property management software. So that's the date on there. But if you're saying, oh, that's not me, I'm not a major host, I don't use PMS software, like I don't have to worry about this. Listen up, December 1st, they're rolling it out to everyone else. So make sure you're changing it for either date. So if you are using a property management software, make sure you know for October 27th. If it's just a single host and you just use Airbnb, then you have to do it on the 1st.
We can just give an example of how this breaks down. So under the old model, let's say your price was $100 a night. Well, the guest would end up seeing a price at around $115 and the host would end up earning $97, okay? So the guest would pay about 12% service fee, host would pay 3% service fee, and that's how it broke down in your payout. Now under the new model, the guest is still going to see the price of $115. So they're still going to be paying the same regardless, but the host is going to be getting about the same amount of money, about $97 and change. So the bottom line is that the guest experience is going to stay exactly the same. The only thing that needs to change is how you set up your pricing, which later on in this video, we're going to show you a stupidly easy way to do this if you're using property management software. So your pricing strategy will need to adapt after the 27th of October.
Yeah, so essentially with the new price, guys, what's happening is the guest pays the same, but now you're deducted more money.
Correct.
From yours. So be very careful with that and just be aware of that. Now, when Airbnb deducts their fees, it's not 3%, it's 15.5 that they're deducting from your income that you've collected. So that's what's really changing here is what's being deducted from the bill.
So ultimately you might be asking the question, well, why is Airbnb making this change to begin with? Like, you know, we seem to be getting on just fine with having the split fee model. Why is this now changing where the host is having to soak up the brunt of the fee? Well, according to Google, after we did a little search on this, it really broke down to about 4 different reasons. Reason number 1 is what they're arguing is they wanted to have more price transparency. So guests wanted to have more upfront pricing, not being levied with surprise fees on the back end. Airbnb was getting a lot of flack over this over the years.
And they've been trying different strategies and different models to try not have it, but essentially it's come down to making it an even playing field for everyone else.
Yeah, and to be totally honest, other platforms like Booking.com, this is how it's been with them almost
since the beginning.
And what has been happening silently in the background is Airbnb has slowly been shedding market share to sites like Booking.com because of things like this, where Booking.com already has that service fee billed directly to the host. So guests, it just creates a more upfront, transparent pricing versus them having to then be surprised with fees on the back end once they get to the point of being able to book.
Yeah, so really they're just booking, like they're trying to increase their booking velocity and transparency, being more straightforward with the prices, which hopefully will equal higher conversions. That's the hope with this all. So Airbnb data shows hosts on simplified pricing plans just like this get more bookings, right? So you're not getting quote unquote feed to death, right? It just shows, hey, this is the price. That's what you got to pay. It's not like, hey, when you finally get to the end, it's like fee, and there's like 10 like fees at the end. And this is according to Airbnb's data and their claims, but I could see that as well. How it's just like, hey, this is one that was advertised, that's what I have to pay. It just builds that trust automatically.
So now why hosts are panicking over this, we're seeing people make claims like, well, I'm going to make less money, or guests are going to think my prices are too high, or I'm forced to raise rates in a bad economy. And at the end of the day, the real issue here is that they're just simply not adjusting their property management software pricing settings. And the fear really comes from not understanding the mechanics of the update. Now, what we're going to do here is we are actually going to take you guys into our property management software. And on October 27th, we'll show you exactly what we're going to do. And once you see how we do it, you'll probably realize fairly quickly it's really not that big of a deal, and it can be fixed almost immediately.
All right, so let's go dive in.
Okay, so where we are now, we are inside of Hospitable. So for our business, we personally use Hospitable for our property management software. So a little plug to Hospitable there. We've really enjoyed working with them. They have a really great software. So let's just show you what we're going to do on October the 27th. So right now I'm just inside of the main dashboard, which is what you're going to see when you first log in. Now on October the 27th, I'm going to go to settings. Then I'm going to go to properties. And here, this is where you can apply what's called a channel manager markup. Okay, so you can see here we have different rates applied depending on the booking site. So currently Airbnb for our business, we have it at 3%, which again is simply just accounting for the service fee that we're paying. VRBO we're doing at 10, booking.com is at 25. Why we have them at different percentages, again, it's just to account for the varying commissions that these sites charge us. Now, on October the 27th, I'm going to go to here. I'm going to change this from 3% to 15.5%. And then I'm going to hit save markup. Now, once I do that, all of my pricing for my Airbnb listings is going to be automatically adjusted and pushed out to every single listing to simply mark up the price that I have there by 15.5%, so that all of that service fee that is getting passed to us is just simply going to be built into our pricing on a go-forward basis. So from the guest perspective, the price that they see and what they're going to pay is going to be exactly the same as it was before they made this change to when the change actually comes through on October the 27th.
It's just really changing how they're collecting it. And
Correct.
Really just from 2 buttons here, guys, you can just account for this adjustment and be done.
So I think you could see pretty quickly there that, obviously being on a tool like Hospitable or any other major property management software, this is going to be a relatively small thing for you to fix in order to account for this new service fee adjustment that Airbnb is making.
But for non-PMS users, you're going to have to, unfortunately, manually adjust your base price and start to account for this fee. So you're just not eating it. And you're going to have to use a calculator to maintain your margins. And maybe this is, the boot that you needed to actually get onto one of these PMS softwares, because it's so easy to do it with that and to make sure you're not, losing money off the get-go or having to do this manual calculation as well. So you have until December 1st if you're on a manual one, or you're not on one of these PMS softwares, to maybe get on at that point. But it is super easy to do with any kind of PMS system out there.
So the bottom line is that the real risk here is simply doing nothing. So if you don't update the way you do your pricing, yeah, you're going to earn about 10 to 12% less per booking. And trust me, if you have a larger portfolio, that's going to compound very quickly. But if you do make the simple adjustment, which we just showed you how to do, you're going to be right on track, or potentially even doing even better, because ultimately this is where the industry is kind of pushing towards this fee structure across the board with all the major sites. And it could actually make you more competitive. So let's talk about why this change could actually be a good thing for hosts that are prepared.
Yeah, so like Michael said, this could actually make your listings and who you are as a host more competitive, because guests will experience fewer booking drop-offs from surprise fees, right? When they're coming through that, they're like, I didn't know there was this 15% fee. I didn't know this was later. I didn't see these fees. Now it's all up front. So booking transparency will really increase the guesting experience in hope of this. And Airbnb is taking price perception way more seriously now. So you win if you play it right, if you're on top of it and you're able to do this. And it really does create a more level playing field, because everyone has to adapt to this, right? I think, there's been a few comments out there saying, oh, this is why you don't want to be a big host with a PMS software, because look, they just have to do it. It's like, read the fine print. You're going to have to do it as well down to December 1st.
Everyone's going to be in the same boat here very quickly, and a month is really not going to make all that big of a difference.
But it also creates a level playing field from all the other OTA platforms. So online travel agencies with Booking.com, VRBO, all those. Now those booking fees are upfront as well. So it really levels the playing field when you're searching and price shopping as well. And then finally, this is probably my best one I like on here that would be a good thing. When you're doing direct bookings, they're going to see way more of a difference as well, because you're not having to pay the 15% fees as well to Airbnb. And now it's a little bit more crisp and clear to show that with the markup. Because up front, when it's transparent, saying, hey, this booking's $115 instead of $100, if you have a direct booking website, you don't have that 15% markup because they're booking direct with you. Yes, you should probably take into account the 3% credit card fee that's coming through there, but 3% now compared to 15 is way different. So it actually gives you an angle being direct and being able to advertise that as well more clearly. So I actually think that's a huge value add.
So if you are a host that does have or wants to build more direct bookings, this is just going to make that much more incentivizing for you to do that, because if you can really lean into getting more direct bookings for your short-term rental business, then ultimately you're not going to have to pay these service fees as much, and you're going to be able to keep more money and also communicate the value of why booking direct for guests is so important, because, well, you're going to be able to give them a better price, and you're ultimately going to be able to earn more and keep more as a business.
So ultimately, if you're watching this video and you're feeling really overwhelmed by all these changes because Airbnb keeps rolling them out, like at least once a quarter, or there's like a new curveball coming this week and next week, and you're like, I can't even keep up with this. This is exactly why we built our STR operating system with STR Wealth Academy. This really helps systemize every part of your business, including pricing, tech stacks, team management, and more. And when we saw this change, we weren't freaking out at all. We knew we had the right system software in here to easily adjust for it. So if you're really liking this content and understanding it and want to learn more, I've just dropped in below a link where you can actually start learning a little bit more about the STROS system and see if you're a good fit to start to automate and really understand the systems better for the short-term rental industry, so you're not caught off guard when something like this rolls out.
So hopefully you found this video helpful. Again, like, subscribe, leave us a comment in the box below. Let us know your thoughts. And we're curious to hear from you guys. What do you think about this change that Airbnb is rolling out? Is this something that you're panicking about? Is this something that is really not that big of a deal for you? Let us know by commenting below, and we want to hear from you guys in terms of how this is impacting your short-term rental business.
All right, see you in the comments.
See you there.